Good, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining this webinar, Young Practitioners in Construction webinar. Yeah, so we will start off the meeting immediately. In starting off the meeting, we would like to call on Ms. Huda to read for us the mission of the Young Practitioners in Construction. Ms. Huda?
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Our mission is to empowering young practitioners through strategic partnership and organizing programs in the built environment. And this is why we are here. I hope everybody will enjoy this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Huda, for that. And then we move to the next agenda, which is reading of the site, the profile or the citation of our guest speaker. And I'll call on Engineer Julius to take his citation.
Thank you very much, moderator, for the introduction, and good evening, everyone, for joining us today, October 2024 edition of the webinar, Young Practitioner in Construction. So we have our esteemed guest in the house, who is already waiting to share his wealth of knowledge with us. But before then, I will quickly read the profile of our guest speaker. Okay, let me quickly share the profile. Let me see. Okay. Jaco Bernard is a qualified engineer and experienced management consultant. He serves as a managing director at Agile Business Technology Pty Limited. Agile is a niche consulting organization based in Stellenbosch, South Africa. Jaco previously worked for a number of leading international ICT and consulting organizations, delivering solutions to companies across retail, construction, and various industries in South Africa, United Kingdom, Australia, and a number of African countries. Agile helps organizations with the AECO industries with their digital transformation initiatives and is the African partner for companies like OpenSpace, 360 Reality Capture, Cartender, OpenBeam, CDE, FONN, Project Management Platform, Cloudfiller, Mail Management for Consultants. Agile has implemented and continues to support their digital solutions across clients in the education, property development, infrastructure, and renewable energy sectors. So that is a brief background of our guest speaker today. Thank you, everyone. Okay, let me try to share.
Thank you so much, Engineer Julius, for taking the profile of our guest speaker today. So on that premise, we'll now invite our guest speaker to take the floor. You're welcome, Engineer Jaco.
Thank you, Fortune, and thank you for inviting me to this forum. I always enjoy speaking to young people still studying or just entering into industry. So locally, I do a lot of guest lecturing at some of the technical universities and universities. Students studying construction management, quantity surveying, real estate studies, etc., etc. But let me start by sharing my screen. So Julius, thank you. You've already introduced me. Let me just find the right presentation. This one, 1 second. Okay. Okay, so I think everybody can see my screen, right?
Positive.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So basically, as
Positive.
Julius said, I'm a experienced or a trained engineer. My engineering training was not actually civil engineering or construction. I'm an electronics engineer who spent most of my time within the consulting field, helping organizations deploy technologies. I spent a lot of time in retail and then moved across into construction. So as a company, Agile Business Technology, we are a software distribution company. And what that really means is that we represent a number of international companies within, sometimes just within South Africa. Most of the time we focus on Sub-Saharan Africa. And in some cases, we actually represent these companies in the whole of Africa. Okay. So some of those logos that you see up there are the companies we represent. Most of them are international software companies, and most of them would be what we call ConTech or construction technology organizations. And most of them would then be what we call software as a service companies. So just my details. Anybody wants to contact me, we're welcome to do so. And just really moving on to the next slide. Can somebody just say whether you can still see or hearing me? Because I see there was somebody waiting in the lobby, but it's just spinning on my end. So I just want to make sure I'm still presenting.
Yeah, we can see you.
We
Okay.
can see you.
Okay, not a problem. Okay, so the topic of today is what we're going to talk about is reality capture. We're going to speak a little bit about what it is. And then what I will proceed to do is to show you in one of the solutions that we have available what it really looks like. Because I think what's important is for us to sort of see it and not just look at a couple of slides, because it will become real once we start looking at these solutions. So if we need to give it this definition to reality capture, it's effectively us collecting and sharing reference information from the built environment, from the sites we're working on, okay? And that's really sort of in a nutshell what reality capture is. So we digitize real world assets using technology, being it hardware and or software. And then effectively, you would have heard the term digital or reality twins or digital twins. It really becomes geometric reference information that we can share with the wider team. Okay, so at this point, let me just switch off my camera. Okay, so if we move on to the next slide, then, so what do we have in the industry today? So what are people using to capture real conditions? So obviously, in the old days, we would have gone and we would have measured areas, whether it's sort of what does the floor plan look like, you know, what is the quantity of drywalling somebody has installed. But there are better ways of us doing reality capture today. Okay, so these are just some of the examples of what is being used in the industry. So we can see that reality capture isn't just one thing. it's an array of many things. And in most cases, what we can see here is there is a hardware component to these reality capture solutions. So what we can see here is drones, some scanners, 3D scanners we've got there, more drones, etc., etc. So if we then move on and say the first, okay, so the first category we have of reality capture, what most people would be familiar with is then drone photogrammetry. And that is really where we use a drone, and all drones basically have got an onboard camera. We use the drone to fly over an asset, and we can then sort of from the external capture the conditions of the asset, or alternatively, if we use the photogrammetry, we can turn that into a 3D model. And the way that works is really sort of through photogrammetry. People would use the photogrammetry, they would turn that into what we would call a point cloud. And from the point cloud, we can then sort of create a 3D model from that specific site. Okay, and mostly it's on large areas. And the restriction here is we would be able to capture the building, the job site from the outside. So we would not be able to fly a drone inside of a building. Okay, so if we look at the second category of reality capture, we would see that is sort of what we call 3D scanning. And here we can use a LiDAR handheld SLAM device, and it's sort of it's the one to the top right there. It's a scanner that we will walk around within an area and basically do a 3D scan of the area. Or alternatively, it could be a scanner that looks like this one, where we mount on a tripod and we put it stationary within a building, within a room, and we're able to then once again scan the building. From that, get a point cloud, from that, get a 3D model. This one here is a portable Navis scanner that somebody puts onto his body, and he or she can then walk in a building with that scanner fixed to them, and it basically does the scanning as they walk. So where we find scanning quite useful is when we have buildings that were, let's say, built 100 years ago. People do not have any plans, let alone digital plans of these buildings. And in order to get to as-built drawings, what we would then do is scan the building. We would have a point cloud. That point cloud can be turned into a 3D model. Maybe we'll then have a Revit file or IFC file of that building. And from there, we can then sort of retrofit and come up with the drawings of that building. So those are two categories of commonly used reality capture. Moving on to then photos and videos. So what we can also do is we can use 360 cameras, and this is what we will see a bit later. What we have in OpenSpace is we'll make use of a 360 camera and normally mount it onto a hard hat. We can walk through the site, and that way we can take 360 photos, or as I'll show you, 360 videos, and effectively make our own Google Street View of the project to be able to share with people that are not on that job site on that day. Okay, so that's what a 360 camera looks like. This is really how it works. We'll talk a little bit more about this when I get to the demonstration, but effectively we'll take a wearable 360 camera, put it on a hard hat. We've got an app. We walk around on a job site, upload to the cloud, and everybody is then able to take this virtual tour by just looking at it. So this is used in every phase of construction, right from pre-construction to handover. And as we move into sort of capital programs or maintenance post handover, it does become quite useful. Okay, so some of the benefits of reality capture, it gives us the ability to spend less time on site. We can collect more higher accuracy information. Okay, can that person maybe just mute, or somebody mute that person? Okay, thank you. It gives us more accurate information. We can have these virtual site visits, as I said. We can document as-built conditions. It's an accurate basis for building information modeling. And once again, it's the remote analysis where we can basically bring people to job sites without bringing them physically to the job sites. Okay, and the software would then integrate to various open standards through which we can then share the information. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'll stop sharing and just share another screen. But I want to do a live demonstration, show you what OpenSpace looks like. There will be time for questions. I see there's not a lot of people on the call, so happy to make this very interactive, answer any questions that you might have. But let me just quickly stop sharing and I'll reshare my screen in a minute. Guys, so away from there. That's it for that bit. And sharing again, you should be seeing my screen now. Okay, so once again, that's just our company. This is what we aim to do, bridging the construction and technology gap and helping people build smarter. I mean, that's really our aim through various technologies that we bring to the continent. Okay, so if you want to go and look and see what we do, some of the solutions we have, this is a good starting point, and you can then take a look at agile.co.za. But the purpose of today is really for us to look at OpenSpace. So what is OpenSpace? What does it do? So in the context of this evening's session, this is reality capture. And why did the guys at OpenSpace.ai develop this? So what problem does it solve in the industry? So I suppose many of you would have worked on job sites, either through vacation work, and I think you all have an affinity for the built environment and will be working on job sites at some point of your career in future. Okay, so what is happening today with job site documentation is most people are documenting job site progress using their phones. Okay, so the easy or the most used process would be somebody's on a job site, they need to capture the progress, take out a phone, take 50 photos of what the conditions are on the 3rd floor of that hotel we're building, and then they need to share that information with a external audience. So the stakeholders also working on the project, depending on where you sit, client side, consultant side, contractor side, these are all the people that are part of the project team and needs to look at what's going on there. The way that people share it is they would sometimes simply go and create a WhatsApp group, and into the WhatsApp group goes 50 photos. Now, that way of sharing is not very useful because nobody would really be able to find a specific photo in future because these photos don't have any context in terms of where it was taken. So there's a better way. As you can see, the guy is walking with camera on his head. And this is really what it looks like. I think you can all still see me. It's really a 360 camera, is a camera with fisheye lenses, one on each side. It's got a magnet at the bottom of that bracket. You put it onto the hard hat, and effectively, I am ready to go and capture the progress on that job site. So what I'm going to do now is log in to the platform so that we can see what these captures look like. Right? So think of me at this stage as somebody who's perhaps a consultant Maybe I'm an engineer, maybe I'm an architect, project manager, and all I need to do is I need to choose the organization in whose subscription, or what we call organization, we would like to then go and review the captures that were already taken. So this is just Agile. It's our demo environment where we're doing a couple of trials with people. And what I'll do is I'll just start showing you some of the projects that we have captured in the past. And I'll start with this project. So this is at the Stellenbosch University, the town where we are based. And it's a engineering building that was extended a while ago, 2 years ago. And together with the university, we used that as a demo site to do some captures. You will hear me using the word capture all along. And we deliberately use the term capture as opposed to scanning, because what we're doing here is we're not scanning, we're not doing the 3D to bin scanning, we're merely capturing using 360 photography. So we don't want to confuse the issue of capturing with then scanning. So this is 360-degree reality capture. There is also, as I said in the previous slides, the drone photography and also then 3D scanning. So what we can see here is a guy called Chris Jurgens came to the project on the 8th of September 2022. And what he did was he opened his phone. He would have switched it on, as we can see down there. He's looking at his phone. And on the phone, there's an OpenSpace app downloaded. And within the mobile app, he would connect that to the camera. At this stage, you can't see it, but it's sitting on his head. And he would then indicate to the app, or in the app, that is on the 3rd floor of this building and that is standing in that position. Okay. So when he's in that position, he would drop a pin on the map on his mobile phone, which at this stage is speaking to the camera sitting on his head. And he then goes and says, start record. Okay. Once he has hit start record, he can start walking. And what we can see here is, I guess most of you would have seen Google Street View. And I'm sure there's Google Street View of some of the cities in Nigeria. And you can then walk around within the building. So what we see there is that's the path Chris walked on that day. And the path is now sort of mapped onto the drawing or onto the floor layout on the sheet, so that we can then see exactly where Chris has walked on that day. So it enables me to very quickly navigate and look at certain spaces. Here we can see, I think down there is actually a 3D printing lab, but what we can see is move into these spaces. That's what it looked like on that day. You would see that the faces are blurred out. And this is a feature within OpenSpace. It's really for privacy purposes. The most of the customers we have in Africa are requesting us to remove it, because by blurring out these faces, we're actually destroying information as to who was on that job site on that specific day. So it's just a feature. We can turn it on and off as per the client's requirements. So if Chris walked on the floor on this specific day and had observed something which is not right, what he could have done, he could have pulled out his phone and he could have made what we call a field note, which is really just taking a photo of that issue. And what we can do is we are now reviewing that site from afar. And maybe this is in Stellenbosch, you might be sitting in Lagos, Abuja, or somewhere. And we can now indicate that there's a problem there. So maybe that is saying incorrect position. And what we can do is we can say this is an open issue. We can assign it to Bonky as the person. We can put a couple of people on a watch list here. We can tag this field note or issue. This is all about fire protection, and we can then give it deadline. So this becomes a task for somebody to then go and close out. Okay, I'm not going to save this in this demo project, but you do get the idea. So either the person walking saw something, or us as the reviewers of the capture is seeing something. And what we do is we basically then do this. So I'm just going to go into a lecture room, and I'm sure a lot of you have spent a lot of time in these places. So that's the new lecture room, quite colorful. They're still working on it. And that's what it looked like on that specific day. So you see, it's very easy for me to navigate through these plans and have a look at what things look like. So let me just go back into this position maybe. Okay. I'm here now. And what if I want to see what's behind this dry wall now? So maybe there's an issue, we need to break open here. What we can do is I can actually start comparing what that looked like on the 8th of September to what the space looked like in the past. So if I go and say, what did it look like in July? Well, that's what it looked like. So there's our progress documented between that date and this date. I want to go further into the past. I will see it says data at this position. I click there, and what I'm now able to do is to see behind the drywall and see above the ceiling in terms of where these things were installed. Okay, so if I just move maybe to another angle and do this again, we might get a better idea of what this does. So as I said, I want to know what's behind that drywall. And at any time, in 10 years' time, the university wants to break through that wall, and they need to check where these services were installed, and boom, that's what it is. Okay, so the university can now see that this is where those services run down. So maybe the drawings or the plan said services must run down there. Contractor came, they put the services down there, but never had the as-built updated. So if the university had broken through the wall there, they would have gone straight into the electrical cables running there. But in this case, we have what we would call almost a digital twin once again, but in photo format. Okay, so this project is really all we needed for it to work was a 3D plan, or sorry, a 2D plan, floor plan, with somebody with an app indicating the starting position. Chris would have walked to that position. It took him 11 minutes to document this whole floor, and everything is now available for anybody from afar to have a look at the project. So if I were to invite any one of you to the project, you would be able to sort of digest this information by walking around in this building. If we now go to another project, and here we can see it's a warehouse. So this project is not a typical building, but it's just one of these very large warehouses. And I'll start on the outside of the building. Okay. So once again, what we can see here is this is where the person who did the capturing, and I can see this was done in 2022. Franco was the person responsible for doing the capture. That's the path where he walked, and it's the same story. So important to point out, the solution is then applicable to not only inside buildings, but we can also use this to capture, let's say, civil works, etc., etc. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the building now and see what it looks like on the inside. So here we can see the layout. This is obviously where shelving, etc., will be fitted into in the future. It wasn't fitted on the day the capture was done. There's a little upstairs office there in that position. And let's go and have a look at what's happening in that area. So in order to do that, let's go to the first story. Okay, I'm in the first story now, and that is that office space that we looked at from the ground floor. Now, once again, same story, faces are blurred out, and the path the person walked, we can remove, so it's not in our way, and we can see very clearly what's happening in the office area in this building. So same thing here. Those things are the field notes that were applied to this area. I'm going to click on this one, and I can now see somebody indicated there's an issue with that installation. So if we look at the description there, HVAC not as per the federated model. So what we can tell from this is something is wrong with the installation that was done in this warehouse. And how did they know that? Well, they were able to do is they were able to call up the BIM model or the 3D model that was designed or made for this building. And in this case, I'm bringing up a federated model. I can see this was federated in a product called Navisworks by Autodesk. And what I'm able to further do is to then switch off some of the services or elements here. And what we can see is we are able to walk through, and wherever we walk in the reality capture here, okay, the platform is then following me in the model itself. So if I don't know how to navigate these models, which I didn't grow up playing computer games, but anybody really would be able to navigate in a Google Street View way of navigating, and immediately this alignment is done for me. Okay, so everything I've shown you now is what we have available in a product called OpenSpace Capture. I'm just going to show you one thing and then happy to take questions and have a bit of an open discussion with everybody around the technology. So let me just close that quickly, close that and go back here. Okay, so what we looked at now is a product called OpenSpace Capture. And as the name said, it does just that. It captures everything on the site, gives us the ability to then compare to a BIM model, gives us the ability to also then make field notes. We also have products called BIM Plus, which is then a more advanced site coordination way of doing things. So in the example I had to spot the difference between left and right. But in the BIM Plus feature, what we can do is we can overlay the design onto the reality and do better coordination with the field in terms of the model. So obviously in BIM Plus, we're going to have a model, whereas in Capture, that model is simply optional. Now, as you would have seen as well in the URL or the web address here, it says openspace.ai. And yeah, I mean, everything is called AI. And as I say, with my IT background, it feels as if anything with the if statement nowadays is AI. So it gets a little bit blurry what AI really is. But let me show you an example of real AI, okay? And this is sort of, once again, within OpenSpace, it is a product called OpenSpace Track. And I'm just going to play this video. There is no music, so don't ask me to turn it up. I'll just let the video play, and it will once again tell the story. So here's a guy, he's on a job site, he puts on the camera, hot it on the head, and he goes to the site, open the project, start new capture. He picks the position, starting position, start record, phone goes away. The phone goes into his pocket because in terms of health and safety requirements, we're not actually allowed to walk around on a job site and make a video. So we are allowed to take photos if we stand still, but anybody being caught taking a video whilst they walk on a job site is actually in violation of health and safety regulations, because you should really be looking at where you're walking and not looking at your screen or as you're making that video. But with the camera on my head, I'm making a 360 video as I'm walking. So what we can see here being annotated in this video is that the materials already installed is recognized by the what we call the vision engine of OpenSpace. It's interpreted and it is measured. Okay, So what will happen now is the guy has finished the walk. He will upload to his colleagues. They are sitting at head office. That lady's looking at what was captured. She's clicking on insights. And what we can see here is that the progress were actually tracked, and that's what track stands for. So we would have set up certain trackers to say top track, framing, drywall hung, drywall taped, etc., etc. And as you can see here, it's starting to tell me that after this capture of January the 30th, okay, on the 10th level, it seems as if that top track or the drywall hung is at 10%. There's no taped drywall being detected there, so it cannot tell me what the progress is. But if we were to upload the program into, or the schedule of this project into the platform, what we would be able to do is to go and actually see where we're falling behind, etc., etc. So this is something traditionally a quantity surveyor would have done on a project, to go and measure the progress and report on that. This is just one example where artificial intelligence is making our jobs and our lives easier. And that is what OpenSpace is. So in terms of adoption, then in Africa, a lot of people, I was in a similar call last week with the Association of Construction Managers of Kenya. So it was mostly people from East Africa on the call. And in the question section, everybody was saying, yes, I guess you guys in South Africa are more advanced. I was like, not really. So there's better adoption of these type of technologies elsewhere in Africa than in South Africa. Okay, so we've got a lot of movement around the adoption of this in East Africa. We've got more clients there than in the South. We don't really have, there would have been use cases of the technology being used in West Africa. Can't give you exact examples in Nigeria, but I do know that there has been some in Ghana. And it's growing, and it's really taking a little bit of time for people to become aware of what is possible and for people to then embrace this technology. What's exciting about the younger generation, you are the generation that will start working, and then somebody will be taking 100 photos, putting that on a WhatsApp group, and you guys are going to be challenging that way of working. You're going to see somebody on a job site with a clipboard, a checklist, doing the paper way, and you'll realize intuitively, because you were born digitally, that there's got to be better ways of doing it. So what we're seeing is that digital adoption is being driven by your generation in the construction industry. And that's really all I wanted to present. So I'm happy to stop at this point, stop talking. I am in sales, so I can talk a lot, but I will pause here and give anybody the opportunity to ask questions or indeed comment in terms of whether you think this is something useful and whether you do see the relevance in your world or in your future world.
Thank you so much, Engineer Jacko, for that insightful presentation. I was particularly impressed by the demo that you showed us, where the worker had to put the camera on his cap, and then from the plan, choose where he was going to view. And I could see the precision, and I think that's something we should try to imbibe in our various sites. I don't know if there's anyone who has comments, questions. You could, okay, Kutsani, please, you could speak.
Hi, thank you. Evening, Jaco. Thank you for the beautiful presentation. It's very interesting, the tech that you presented to us. I just have one question. because you did mention that this tech, it captures all the rooms in under, okay, for one floor, on average, it's about 11 minutes. I was about to ask you on that, in terms of, the capturing. I think, let me just make a note before I ask my other question. You did mention about adoption, that the young generations, the millennials and the Gen Zs, will be the driving force. But I feel like this is mostly influenced by the client in most projects, even with FM, even selecting the type of software. Like, for example, FM, the other project I was involved in, we were using Archibus, and it was also an issue for people to adopt, to utilize Archibus to its full potential, because most of the concerns that the engineers and the architects were raising was that they were complaining that it's very admin. I don't know if that is the same case with the software, that or is just resistance from the consultants, that it's very administrative, capturing pretty much you need to capture all that in that software, and that's what most people resist. So most of the projects are very email based, like we will send emails and stuff like that, but it's very it also has its flaws in just tracking where everything is. So my other question, I just wanted to find out, in terms of once the floors are mapped, are captured, is there a way of mapping where everything is, in terms of like maybe preparing an asset register? Because you did mention that this helps for in case after the project ends, after closeout. So maybe the client may need to have an asset register. Will that also be recording that? And also, is there a way of also generating a report when you capture?
Okay, so
Uh-huh.
I'll try and answer all those questions as succinctly as I can. So the process of capturing is almost as simple as the walk on that floor somebody would have done in any case. So there's always somebody that needs to do a weekly walk, and it almost is no additional work to be able to do that. So in that example, that person walked through that whole floor in 11 minutes. Okay. The process that I didn't quite explain post the capture is he or she would have hit end record. What they would have then done is they would have uploaded, as we saw in that video, they would have uploaded the 360 video to the cloud. In the cloud, this would get processed, and processing takes between 15 to 20 minutes for it to, what we call, stitch, make it into the Google Street View tour of that building, and then make that available. So this is not a live feed. So a lot of people are thinking that we're sitting and watching somebody walking through a building with a bit of a GoPro camera. This is not what it is. I'm recording for us to reference to in future. And future might be as soon as 15 minutes after it has been uploaded. There is no additional effort in terms of having to plot where the person walked. That gets worked out automatically. There's technology that does it. That's not a GPS tracker. GPS doesn't work in a building. So the software figures out where the person has walked, what the path looked like, made an interpretation of the drawing, and then plotted quite accurately on that drawing where that person has walked. Your question around sort of then adoption, in my case, is more ignorance, people not being aware of these things. And unfortunately, people in construction is very busy. So we don't have people that can pause for 15 minutes, join a call like this, look at the possibility, build the business case, because obviously it's got a cost. It's not expensive software, this, but effectively somebody needed to go and ask his or her boss for that investment. But trust me, this has got a payback period within 3 months. This is paid for by itself, especially when your sites are far. We don't need to incur all the travel costs. Now, in terms of your other question around, I'm familiar with Archibus. It's a facility management tool. And what Archibus does is effectively manage post handover the buildings. Unfortunately, Archibus is a very old system. I looked the other day, it was written 35 years ago. So I won't be surprised if the code is still in COBOL or something like that. It is not 3D aware, it cannot handle BIM. And I've seen people really, really struggle, especially when they try and utilize the project management portion of Archibus, because that's not what it was made for. It's an FM tool. So can the AI do an automatic asset register for me? At this stage, the answer is no. Will it get there in future? I'm sure it will, okay? Because the AI is quite sophisticated and there's new features coming out all the time. So if, as an example, somebody wants to go and search, they can't find the generator in a 10-story building, they can go and search and it would return the result that it was seen during the previous capture on the 3rd floor in that room. So the fact that it can recognize, and this is what AI does a lot of cases, if you look at self-driving cars, it's the interpretation of photography. So the answer is no, it can't, but I'm pretty sure it will do so in future, and maybe not this platform, but I'm sure this is where the future is heading. Does that answer your questions?
Thanks, Jaco. Yeah, it does answer my questions. So it is a huge concern on the adoption. But on my side, I feel like we somehow need to put that in the contract. I don't know. I think somehow, I know in other countries, usually the government is also involved. They also motivate most of there's lots of motivation from the government for us to do this adoption, and also but most of it comes from the client, the decision, and also having the budget for it. Also, I just wanted to find out, you mentioned that when you put in field notes, can we also upload, for example, you mentioned there was an example on, I think it was a fire hose reel, that I can't remember, something related to fire. Is it possible when the person does the walks, and then the item is assigned to a subby or whoever, but then that person also, someone can also upload maybe drawings or specifications on that item? Can it do that?
Yeah. So I mean, I can make attachments, add more photos, etc., etc. So it's really a field note. I can give it a description, make it a task for you to close, and it becomes like a request for information. Maybe it also can integrate into the world of Autodesk or Procore and those platforms, so that we don't have field notes sitting here, but in the construction management platform, we have then other issues or actions or RFIs there. I can tell that you've been working on the client side a lot, maybe as a consultant. This is really, if you think about it, something general contractors should adopt, okay? And it's really for them to manage their own world and the world between them and their subcontractors, okay? And when a general contractor adopts this, they will then decide who they invite to the platform. And if the client is invited as well, then the contractor can decide what they want to share with the client, okay? If the client were to deploy this, it can be like a mandate like we need to use BIM, right? So it could be similar to that kind of mandate. But if the client were to adopt this, what we do see in practice is that you might not want to get the contractor to capture for you, okay? Because I think the objectives between the contractor is quite different to the objectives of the client. There's always a little bit of tension. So when it's client adopted, rolled out, the client would generally appoint an independent principal agent, project manager to do that capturing for them. Otherwise, the contractor is just going to say, sorry, we couldn't capture that specific room on that day, it was locked. Well, that's interesting. I wonder why he did not do that. So lots of nuances. The interesting one that we do have is the biggest user of this technology in Africa at this stage is Nedbank. It's a bank in South Africa who also happens to, from our banks, be the largest property development financier. Okay, so in terms of their book, it's the biggest of all the South African banks. They started financing into Africa in 2018. And guess what? In 2020, they couldn't get to their job sites. They were all locked up in Johannesburg. And the process of a bank in terms of drawdown verification is somebody puts in a progress claim, the bank physically goes to that site, they send a surveyor out or a QS person who goes and measures and verifies, calls the bank and say, yes, 50% complete, you can pay it out. So they couldn't get to those sites. They deployed this as a measure to overcome lockdown. Because remember, construction never stopped in 2020. It did continue. And today, Nedbank is actually incorporating OpenSpace into all the property development loans they give to developers. So they say to the developer, we're not going to visit your site. We'll give you the software on the condition that you will do the capture to verify the drawdown or the payment certificates, etc., whatever place might be in place. Huda, you had a question as well?
Good evening, sir. Thank you for this interesting topic. I would like to ask 2 questions. My first question, in case of losing connection, is the camera keep shooting and uploading the program? And my second question is, if a client take the software from your site and upload it for their phones, did they can do that for every site that they working on, or they need to regenerate the contract with you for every site that they are using with this software? Thank you.
Okay, two very good questions. So the first question goes around sort of what one naturally would assume, okay? And I think the assumption, what you were thinking about as I did the demo was, what if there's no internet connection, okay? Now, what the reality is, I do not need internet connection when I go and do the capture. In other words, I can go out, as we say in South Africa, out into the sticks where there is zero internet connection. And as long as I have synchronized my phone, downloaded the sheets and the projects on my phone, I would be able to go 300 kilometers out, do these captures. The captures get stored on the SD card on the camera. They then get downloaded. And once I'm back at a Wi-Fi connection, that is when I would go and push it up into the cloud. Your second question was one around how does the licensing of this thing works? What we sell is an annual subscription, and effectively an annual subscription allows the subscriber unlimited uses of the platform. So we'll give you the software. We can provide hardware, but in most cases we'll get you to buy your own hardware. Maybe we'll give you the bracket and the hard hat that's already sort of fitted with that thing there. You can get these cameras in Nigeria or wherever you are, and then you can just go and do this. But it becomes unlimited in terms of projects. It becomes unlimited in terms of captures, users, etc., etc. So there is no limit. Once you've got a license, it is eat as much as you can. The problem, and it's a little bit of a and don't take offense to the statement I'm going to make now, is the way we arrive at the license cost, okay, is we're trying to ascertain what is the construction activity to which the software will be subjected to in the next 12 months, okay? And the only reasonable, sensible way for the subscriber to communicate that to us is to tell us in dollar value what the intended annual construction volume is, okay? So if you're a contractor, I want to get a sense of what is your intended turnover. Now, it's not a problem in East Africa, it's not a problem in South Africa, it is an issue in West Africa. So people are a little bit reluctant to tell what project values are or what the accumulated value is. I wouldn't say on all projects, but we are having problems where people are saying, I cannot tell you that number. It's impossible. And what a lot of people are saying is like me telling you how many wives I have. It's a secret, state secret. We can work around that. And for sometimes there's very good reasons. It's confidential information, which we should not be privy to. We can work on a model where we use square meters and say, listen, I will be capturing in the next 12 months a total of 100,000 square meters. You will then tell us this is low cost housing, affordable housing. Maybe it's in the medical field where we're going to build hospitals. But in reality, what we're going to do with your square meters is just plug it into a calculator in the background and then work back to the annual construction volume. But actually, the people that does it that way around get punished because this is an American company that doesn't really understand how much does it cost to build affordable housing in Nigeria. It's just got no sense. So it only has rate cards out of America. But yes, to answer the question is unlimited. The other question would be what happens afterwards with the data. Okay, now the data that gets uploaded into the OpenSpace cloud is it belongs to the person that has done the captures. Okay, what that really means is that baked into or factored into the subscription is storage and hosting of this data for the next 10 years. Okay, so if somebody's going to build a, let's say, Centenary City outside of Abuja, use it on that project, and they're only going to use it for 1 year and say, don't want to use it anymore, that information becomes available free of charge for the next 10 years. So OpenSpace doesn't have a model where you need to then pay to access your own data.
Thank you very much. Because I was worried about cost-wise for your side. Now I'm confident. Thank you.
Yeah, and the thing is, even though this is an American product, the fact that it's really working off a percentage of the annual construction volume, it works itself out. I mean, so that millions of Naira translated into US dollars, it is just a percentage. So it's not as if you're going to pay more because you're sitting in a currency that is not as strong as the US dollar. It's always a percentage of, there's a minimum subscription, obviously, where it doesn't make sense for you to buy this if you're a builder building 3 houses per year. I mean, this is not, you don't need it, to be honest. This is for larger projects.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Huda. So we quickly take Kutsani, and then Mr. Divine will take those 2 questions, and then we begin to wind up.
Just a follow-up question, from what Huda asked. I just wanted to find out, are we able to extract reports out of that software? As much as you mentioned that we'll have access to the captured recordings, for about 10 years, but are we able to export it, to create a report that we can send to clients or any stakeholders that's interested?
Yeah.
And
So at this stage, I mean, you would have seen the automated progress tracking. We don't have any of those clients in Africa yet. I mean, that's really advanced. We steering people away from it because you need to do a really good job at capturing before you can rely on the computer to tell you what progress is. So, I mean, for us, it's like first use the base package, get into track later. There is reporting around the usage of the platform that you can extract. There's also the field notes I showed you. All those can be exported into a field note report. So what I can do is to say, show me all the field notes for plumbing on the 3rd level with subcontractor B that is overdue. Okay, and that can become a field note report, can extract the information out of the platform. We can take all this information from the cloud if we want to, store it on our own server. We strongly advise against it because the experience in terms of navigating is not going to be the same. And why would you want to do it? Because then you need to look after it and figure out a way of then making that available to other people, because it's really collaboration. We want everybody in future to be able. So there's a certain amount of reporting, but it might not be exactly. It's not going to be your asset register because it's not there yet. There was another question.
Okay, Mr. Divine. Mr. Divine, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, please.
I'm here.
Question, please.
And Jock, I really appreciate you. This is my more or less first time hearing from you. I really appreciate your explanation. My question is, what is the sustainable advantage of this software in the area of building information management system? That's my question,
Okay.
sir.
So the question is, what is the relevance or the advantage of it?
Yes, what is the sustainable advantage? As in advantage that will stay for, that will make other young practitioners dive into it and make use of the software in area of building information management system.
Okay. So, I mean, happy to have another session with you guys around BIM in future. As I say, we're quite involved in that aspect as well, specifically around what we call open BIM, but it's a big discussion for another day. So in terms of open space, I mean, let's just start with saying this is not a BIM solution per se, okay? But if I do have a BIM model, the BIM model is all of a sudden getting much more utility than before, okay? So what I'm able to do is I'm able to use the BIM model to be able to compare. I'm not sure if you saw that part of the presentation, but where I've got the BIM model up there, I'm using that as the reference to what is being built in reality. So the as-built conditions on that specific day, okay? It goes much further in terms of the BIM plus, let's say, edition of the software, because what I can do in BIM Plus is I can start overlaying the BIM elements onto the reality, okay? And what I can then start doing is see whether things are fitting. So I'm starting to take what traditionally was known as BIM coordination, is a process between consultants, where the architect and the engineer and the plumbing person is making sure that the things don't clash. So that's what we call coordination. We're actually now involving the contractor in this process, okay? So we're giving the contractor a copy of the model, and we're having the contractor in the field who's responsible for actually making the BIM into reality, okay?
Okay.
He's got tools to use it. And what we can do, if we, I don't want to go too deep into the BIM discussion, but if on the standard package, I can make my field notes on the photos. On the BIM package, what I can do is I can raise a field note on the model itself. And because that field note is applied on the model, it has got spatial information. And because it's got spatial information, what I can do is I can export the issue or the field note into what we call BIM collaboration format. And what that would be able to do is to send that field note, that issue, right into the Revit model, okay? And it would open it in the designer's 3D world. Let's just say it's Revit, ArchiCAD, Tekla, whatever that might be. And I'm really starting to take coordination to the field. I mean, that in a nutshell is where this would become much more sustainable, because currently BIM seems to be something the designers do between themselves. But now we're involving the contractor in our BIM processes and in the BIM workflows. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I really appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Cool. Anything else? I'm not pressed for time, so if there's one or two more, happy to field them.
Okay, do we have any other person? Dr. Samuel, Dr. Okwe? Any question from your answers? Okay,
Zani, she's going to win a prize, but go ahead. You're asking good questions.
I'm just very interested about this, because I have experienced the frustrations, on site. So I do see the possibility, the potential of this software. It's just my last question. You mentioned on subscription. I think Huda asked about that. Is there unlimited subscription, or does it work in tiers in terms of how many people will be able to do the capturing, or is it only just one person that's able to access it? I don't know if I'm making any sense. Yeah, in terms of, is there a limited number of people, like maybe 10 people, or it's unlimited people that have access to it?
It is an unlimited subscription, okay?
Okay.
And I mean, it's one of my pet topics. We cannot call anything a collaboration platform and then limit users to get access to information only if they have a license, okay? So some other platforms, you want to sort of share in the common data environment, have you got a license to get to the information? That is anti-collaborative, okay? So open space is really unlimited. I mean, we sell a capacity to you based on your intended construction, but you are not really bound to number of projects, number of users, how many cameras you want in the field. We don't really care. This is truly unlimited, albeit capped by the capacity you buy. And that capacity is expressed in an annual construction volume. And we do have a minimum subscription of $10 million US per annum. So that's not the price. It's the capacity that we will sell to you. So you can go and use this across 5 projects, each consuming of that 10 million, maybe 2 million in that specific annum. And that's really the way it works. And the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. So the pricing starts at $6,600 per annum for use on $10 million of construction. If you were to buy a package that can cater for 100 million per annum, it's not as simple as 10 times that percentage drops down, and volume then buys discount. So there's a cap, but there's not really any limit beyond the capacity that you signed up for.
Thank you so much, Jaco.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Samuel, you want to say something? Dr. Samuel?
Okay, thank you very much, Jaco. Mr. Fortune, thank you very much for setting me up. But the truth is, Jaco is a great guy, and we have actually met in some fora where we've spoken about BIM, CAPEX, OPEX, and the rest. So, yeah, actually delivered as always, because he has a great deal of experience, practical of that when it comes to technological adoption. So yeah, I have no question for Jaco. We can always continue the conversation as always when we have to discuss even more about ISO 19650 and the rest offline. But for this evening, he has done a great job, and I'll definitely catch him up very soon, and then we'll continue the conversation. But thank you, Jaco. Really, it is always great for you to share your wealth of experience and give your should I say your 2 cents, even though that's more than 2 cents, on how things are meant to be done in the construction industry. So thank you very much.
No problem. And yeah, nice seeing you again on this forum. And as I said, happy to talk about other things. I mean, I've got a lot to say about BIM and Open BIM, but let's not start that conversation today. It's maybe a discussion for another day. But always happy to contribute and share knowledge as best as I can. As I say, fundamentally, we're just software salespeople, we're distributors, but we see a lot of what's happening in the industry and our perspective in terms of where's the obstacle to adoptions, and it's very often it would be, no, we don't have the money. And guess what? I don't have money is just a good excuse for, or a different way of saying, I don't understand what you're talking about, or I really don't have any appetite to build business cases, apply my thinking as to how we can do things better. I mean, we've got Namibia Construction, first adopter in Africa. They are in year 3 of using this technology quite successfully.
Thank you so much, Engineer Jaco. We've really enjoyed your session. And I hope when we call you back again some other time, you will avail us your knowledge and wealth of experience.
Not a problem. Maybe next time I'll come and see you guys up in the West.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay,
Okay.
Have a nice day, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Go well.
Okay, bye. And so we thank every one of you, everybody, for staying, for listening, and for holding on till this time. We also want to thank our speakers, previous speakers who have been here, Dr. Samuel Adekunle, Dr. Okpeoluwa, who have stayed through with us from when we started up till this time. So we thank every one of you for attending this event today. Next month, we have another insightful presentation for every one of us. So from my side, I would like to say thank you and thank you. Good night to every one of us. Have a wonderful night rest. Bye.
Bye. Stay safe.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.